So let's design a hat. First I want to see which yarn I want to use, what size needles does the yarn call for, and what stitch I want for my hat. And also if it's going to be a beanie hat or a slouchy hat. And so I am going to make my swatch, and I know now that into 4 inches I have 17 stitches. Okay, so this is the stitch that I want to use, the needles and the yarn that I want to use. So let's go and see how many stitches I need for the hat. Okay, so now I need to do my numbers, and I know that 17 stitches give me 4 inches. And therefore, in order to have 21 inches around my head, how many stitches I need? So I multiplied the two cross-given numbers, divided it by 4, and I came up with 89. So now I need to decide whether I want that 1 by 1 ribbing, which is a multiple of 2, or a 2 by 2 ribbing, which is a 4, and 3 by 3 ribbing would be a multiple of 6. So if it's a 1 by 1 ribbing, I need 88 plus 1 for the edge, and that would give me 89. 88 if you're using circular needles. And the 2 by 2, it will also give me 88 by 1, 88 if you're using circulars. And 3 by 3 ribbing is a multiple of 6, which gives me 90. So it's close enough. Plus 1 makes me it gives me 91, which I will use 90 if I'm using circulars. So now I know that I'm going to be using 89 stitches because I'm going to be using straight needles. So I did a long tail cast on, and I cast it on 89 stitches, and I did a knit 2 purl 2 ribbing, and I ended with knit 1. And let me show you why. When you sew it together, you're going to sew half of that stitch with half of this stitch, so like that you show like you have 2. So that's the reason. Okay, so now on this case I decided to do a straight stitch, but if you decide to have a stitch that has, let's say, a multiple of 6 or a multiple of 5, and you need to adjust your stitches to that amount. So in order to do that amount, let's say that I need to add stitches. So pick up that strand in between your 2 stitches, put it up on your needle, and then knit it from there. So you add a stitch. Now if you want to take off stitches, you can just knit 2 together. But do that on the first row of your pattern, so like that it doesn't show funny in the middle of your knit. So if you need to add 3 stitches, let's say add 1 there, and another 1 there, and another 1 there, so they're not all together. And the same when if you need to knit 2 together. So in this case, I decided that I want to knit a straight stitch throughout the hat, and if it's a beanie, you need to knit and purl, whatever the stitch is, until you have about 6.5 or 7 inches before you take off for the top of the hat. Once I have my 6.5 inches, because this hat is for me and I have a small head, then I need to do my numbers in order to take off 6 times. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I need to divide the 88 stitches. You see, I did all my numbers. So I divide the 88 stitches because the extra one doesn't count for the numbers. I divided it by 6 times that I want to do that, and it comes to 14 stitches. And I have 4 stitches left. So therefore, I need to get rid of 4 stitches. And I counted 14, 15, 15, 14, 15, 15, and that gives me 88. So I have separated on the last row of, which is the wrong side, I counted 14, 15, 15, 14, 15, 15, and like that I can take off every time I have 15. So let's do that. Okay, I'm on the last section where I have 15, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whoops, let me get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, knit these 2 stitches together. Now I have 14, pass my marker, and I have the last one that it doesn't count for my numbers. So now I have 14 on each section, and now I can start taking off every time, just before every time I see my marker. So now I'm going to purl, because you don't do anything on the purl side, you just purl. And now I'll come back when I finish this. Now we start with the takeoff rows. In this case I have 14 stitches on each section, and therefore I am going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then these 2 I am going to knit together. And I am going to do that on each section. And I have 14 and knit 12 and knit together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and knit together. And you do that the whole row, and then on the way back you purl. And I'll have the instructions written down, because of course you're going to have 1 less on each of the sections. So you're going to be decreasing 6 stitches all around on each right side row. So now I have about 2.5 inches from the time I started taking off. And since I'm not taking off that often, I'm just taking off 6 times, and you can see where that is. I want to take off more often, or it would look kind of pointy. And unless you want it to look that way, you really need to start taking off more stitches on each row. So therefore, on every right side row, I am going to be taking 2 stitches on each section. So that means on each section I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's count 4 before the marker. So I have 4 before the marker, and I'll knit these 2 together, these 2 together, pass my marker, and then keep knitting until the 4 before the marker. And I'll take off, I have 3, I need another one. I'll take 2 off, and 2 off, and keep going like this until the end of the row, and then come back purling. And then you do this on every row, and I'll come back. Okay. Okay, so now I have only 19 stitches. The last time I took off it was knit one, knit two together, knit two together, and then I purl the back. And so now I want to knit two together, and then we need to take these off, knit two together, knit two together, knit two together, knit these two together. Let me get these straight, and then knit two together, take off, knit two together, knit two together, knit two together, and I think we're going to, that's the last one. I think we haven't, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 10 stitches. I think we can close them unless you want only 5. But I think it's small enough amount of stitches so that we can close it. So now I'm going to leave a long tail because I want to sew with it. And I cut it and I pass my yarn through my needle. And then, since I have circular needles, that's a good part about having circular needles when you, even when you are turning. I usually use circular needles because they're so much easier to work with. Okay, so let's get this here. Okay, so now I pass my yarn around. And I'm going to pass it one more time just to secure it because I'm very obsessive about it. I don't want boo-boos. Okay, so now I pass it again and make a little knot in the back. Always do that because a lot of people don't make knots in the back, and I'm all for them because I don't like accidents. Okay, so now I'm going to pass my yarn to the front again, there, and I'm going to look for the stitch on the other side. Remember that we left that one stitch, so we're going to pass from the knot to the knot, and then from that knot to the next. And we do have a video on how to sew sides. And then of course when you do the bottom part, see I leave a long tail in the bottom also because like that I can sew with it from the bottom to the top and I don't have knots. I don't like knots at the beginning and at the end of my knits or on the sides, so I always have knots in kind of, not in the middle because they also show, but close to the edges. So let's get that one there, which is the one that we left, and we are going to pick up half a stitch on this side and half of that one that we have on the other side, and like that we can sew the hat. See, when you gather the half of one side on this side and then half on the other, then you end up with 2 full knit stitches. See them? So that's why we have that extra stitch. Let me show you one more time. Let me get this camera a little bit closer so you can see that. Okay, I think you can see that better there. So see if I pick up half of a stitch around at the edge, half of a stitch there, and half of the stitch on the other side. So in and out on one side, in and out on the other side, and then when you have them together you have 2 full knit stitches. See them? So I'm going to take some pictures of this and we'll post it. Thank you very much for watching, and share us with your friends, and thank you for subscribing, and I will see you next time.